Did you say a river?
I said a river. It is Arizona's forgotten river. Now I'm going to back up a little bit and say that most people, if you know the area well, if you know southern Arizona, if you look at a map, and someone said, what's the closest river to Superior? People would say, well, there's the Gila River to the south, there's the Salt River to the north, and then each of them has tributaries, like the Verde River, the Agua Fria River, the San Pedro River, the Santa Cruz River, and it all winds up in the Gila River, eventually. And as we just saw, the Gila River goes into Colorado, there in Yuma, in the very southwest corner of the state. But there is Arizona's forgotten river, which is Queen Creek. Now that's a term, Arizona's forgotten river, that was termed by some archaeologist friends of mine who did a study of Queen Creek from the top way up at Fortuna Peak all the way down to the Gila River Indian Reservation. And they were looking specifically at the archaeology, seeing if there was a continuous distribution of Native American sites all the way up and down Queen Creek. And they determined not only that there is a continuous distribution, but that the environment used to be very, very different. It's been changed a lot in the past 150 years with farming and settlement and urban growth. And right now, Queen Creek, once it gets down to the edge of the Salt River Valley, it just sort of disappears. It's just a channelized drainage that runs through farmlands and towns, and it eventually sort of dumps into the Gila River. But originally, Queen Creek, what we now call Queen Creek, was a stream 70 miles long from top to bottom. It flowed for long stretches. There was permanent water all year, fed by springs and by side streams like Arnett Creek and Hewitt Canyon and Siphon Draw. So there was a lot of water in Queen Creek. And so there were people living along the entire length of Queen Creek. There were different cultures at different periods of time of Native Americans. Up in the high country here, just above town, you had the Salado cultures and the Apache. Down here in the desert, you have the Hohokam. Many of you probably know the big archaeological site that was excavated near the Mormon church about 10 years ago. And that's a site that is predominantly Hohokam. And that's the people who are more associated with the Salt River and the central Gila River. And then you go on farther down the Gila River. After Queen Creek joins it down to around Gila Bend and on down to Yuma, there was a group called the Patayan who were more of they did farming along the river, but the Gila wasn't quite as reliable that far down. It was ephemeral and it was prone to flooding and drying up, but people made a good living along there and by also hunting and gathering in the areas around the river. So there's different stretches of all of these rivers, but Queen Creek was very important because it's the biggest drainage that comes in between the Salt and the Gila and drains this chunk of east central Arizona here. And because it was such a long river, I'm saying river instead of creek because in terms of length, creeks don't run 70 miles. Creeks usually are 20 or 30 miles and then they dump into a river and that's it. But a lengthy stream like Queen Creek and one that had water in it most of the time, whether from the winter rains or from the summer monsoons, was a major resource for the people who lived here hundreds, thousands of years ago. So I just wanted to briefly impress upon you the importance of Queen Creek. Today it's been greatly altered by human activities. It's dry most of the time. When it does flow, it flows for just a little bit, dries up again. But it was much more important in historic and prehistorical times. And because it connected this area to the Gila and the Salt and the Colorado, then you've also got that continuum of human use and history. So we're all kind of tied in to the Colorado River ultimately, whether we're here or even in the mountains of southwest New Mexico where the Gila begins, way up in the Prescott where the Agua Fria and the Verde begin. We're all sort of started with the same plumbing system that drains the southwest and all ends up down there at Yuma. So there's history, there's culture, and the main thing is there's the history of water. and the way water resources work that ties Superior into everything else in the whole Rocky Mountain West. Because the water comes down from Wyoming, Colorado, down through Utah, into Arizona, and down to the Gila, and picks up that water that originates in Green Creek, all these other places. It's one big, massive plumbing system, and Superior is not only part of it, but in many ways a very important part, because you're right here at the junction between the Sonoran Desert and the central Arizona highlands, and you have a stream that spans both of those areas. So I think that's about it.